in to Athletics LLC with Lamar, Lucius, Big League Chew, and my man Clyde, and the governor. You're about to be schooled in all things track and field. This is experience. Yes, sir. We are talking past, present, future. Y'all listen up. Let's go.
Well, there we go. We're waiting on you because you're running the show, Mr. Holloway.
Oh, okay. No problem. I get it. Okay. You're the host. But anyway, welcome to this week's segment of Athletics LLC. As you can see, our esteemed colleague, Miss Big League Chew, is unavailable. I believe she's getting all dolled up and getting her hair done. So she may join us later. So we're going to have a staff meeting this week, and we're going to jump right in because apparently my staff has other things to do in their real lives. So
recruiting, we got recruiting.
Yeah.
We got to get on the road. It's that time of year.
There you go. So how's everyone doing this morning, or this evening, wherever we are in the world? Everybody good?
Everybody's good. Everybody's good.
Okay.
Je suis fatigué.
We're going to start the staff meeting by asking World Champion to mute himself. And then, Governor, your assignment for this week's meeting is, so you want me to allow you to sign a long jumper sprinter. So I need you to explain to me how you're going to set up his training model to cover all the bases for the long jump, but also so that he helps us in the sprints, aka 4x1 leg. Okay.
All right. So let's just start by saying that this young man is extremely unique, and this young man needs very, very detailed training. And this young man is going to be trained in my image. So I kind of have an idea already. And
so you understand, you do understand if you're in my staff meeting, you're getting blasted right now. I didn't ask you all that. I didn't ask you all that. I need you to tell me, forget all the imaging, how are you convince me to let you sign this guy?
So I feel like we don't even have time. That we're having this staff meeting in an auditorium with 50,000 people watching us. So I kind of embellished a bit, and I'm sorry, boss. My bad. So, for this young man to help us, I will have to address the sprint component and the jumps component. First off, I have to basically analyze whether he's a sprinter jumper or a jumper sprinter.
Well, based on the information that you gave me, hypothetically, he's a jumper sprinter.
Aha. Okay. So if he's a jumper sprinter and he's going to help us, and
so just to clarify, because if he was a sprinter jumper, he'd be training with me.
There you have it. Okay. So this is getting better by the second. So he's a jumper sprinter.
Yes, sir.
So one of the first things that I will want to address is his speed. If he is going to jump for us, he's obviously done some pretty good things already in high school. So the way I would set it up is I would have a sprint day on a Monday. I would have a jump day on a Tuesday. Okay. I would have a max speed slash, how do we put it? A race modeling. And that can actually be switched with doing approaches on a Wednesday. Thursday will be my recovery day. And then Friday would be the day that I am doing either combination jumps or I'm doing another sprint day.
Okay, now can you explain combination jumps to me, please?
Combination jumps on a Friday would be my hopping drills, my bounding drills, working on, it could be stadiums, it could be bounding uphill, it could be sleds. And based on the time of year, we could be on the grass, we could be on a hill, we could be on the track. But the bottom line is this. I want to make sure that we are doing something to do with jumps twice a week, and we're doing something to do with sprints twice a week.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the order of training, now I have the flexibility where if you need said young man for a relay day, okay, I can now make sure that he's available for you on those days, and it can correlate with that particular day that we're trying to run fast. Okay. Now, obviously, on Monday when we're working in, I would want, if you would have this young man, I would want him to work in with the sprinters on Monday.
Okay.
I would want him to line up with the sprinters and to compete with the sprinters, because I think it's natural. It's a natural fight or flight type situation. And, we're going to find out what this young man is made of. Right.
Okay. So what you're trying to do is kind of hone his competitive skills in this situation?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And this is not even a situation where, we're building into it or anything like that. At the level that we're trying to compete at, this young man has to understand that if you are going to line up, you better be ready. You better be ready, and you better be ready to compete against the best sprinters on our team.
Okay, so, and I know the answer to this, I believe, but in your mind, how does the block starts help him in the jumps?
So the accelerations early in the season, leading into the blocks sessions later into the fall, what that means is you are learning how to push. You are learning how to accelerate. And what I'm looking for are maximal changes in the amount of speed that this man can generate on the runway. Okay. So what I'm warning him way beforehand. I said, look, you are going to be able to get up to top speed a whole lot faster if you are listening and if you're choosing to learn how to push. And there will be an adjustment in your approach. But having world-class speed on the runway is something that we all strive for. So it's something that we're not going to shy away from. We're going to put on our racing hat on a Monday and line up, and we're going to give it everything we have.
Okay. So I guess the final piece of this is, as we sit down and we look at the competition schedule,
right?
We'll just take indoors because that's the bigger burden to bear, right?
Yes.
So how many times are you going to need him to jump? And I'm gonna say this: I don't need him to sprint every meet. I'm going to let you choose when he sprints and when he jumps. So how do you set that model up based on the fact, again, he is a jumper sprinter?
Right. So we starting from indoors, correct?
We're talking about indoors right now. Yeah.
Indoors, right. So the way, if I'm looking at what is manageable, I'm going to start off the season with him sprinting and jumping.
Okay.
And the whole point is, I'm preparing for the outdoor season. I'm also making sure that he gets his reps in the sprints. And again, it's a constant conversation where I'm just telling him, look, this is all part of the deal to help you become a better jumper.
Okay.
Cannot shy away
So
from it. Go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt you because you have yet to tell me how many times he's going to jump
He's going to jump,
it.
including conference and nationals. Okay. He's going to jump 4 times,
Okay.
and he's gonna sprint 3 times.
Okay. Thank you. See how easy that was. We don't have to complicate things, sir. We don't. All right. So, based on the conversation, I'm gonna let you sign the kid because you are clearly prepared and you understand what's required to get the job done. You kind of took me around the block there a couple of times, but not sure what that was all about. But we got to where we want to be. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
We will discuss later on exactly what the offer will be, but we'll talk about that.
I just had him on speed dial, so I'm just waiting for you to give me a number, and then we'll go from there.
All right,
23%.
Right. Nobody's talking to you, world champion, again. So now, Clyde.
Sir.
So as we're going to talk about women's hurdles here. So I need you to explain to me your training model for a combination hurdler who we expect to be a scorer in both events at the NCAA championships, and someone who might possibly be on a 4x1 or a 4x4 relay.
Oh man.
Sure. So obviously we are talking about a very elite and talented young lady.
Absolutely.
So, for me, we could start at the end and work our way backwards, if you will. We don't, we're not in the business of competing every weekend, which I think will play into her strengths, actually. So come conference meet, we have prelim final, and as long as she is healthy, that meet alone, if she didn't already have her qualifiers, will handle the qualifiers. However, preceding that during the regular season, she should be available to run the relays whenever we need to see fit. Obviously, the 4x1 is a more skilled relay. So I would imagine she'd be running that one more often than a 4x4 when needed. As far as the training is concerned, hurdlers need to hurdle. So we're going to start to hurdle early. And in my world, hurdle work is part of her speed and acceleration development anyway. So once we get out of whatever we believe to be our general fitness start of the year protocols, we're getting right into acceleration development for her short hurdles and making sure that indoor is used ultimately to satisfy the first half of her race. So outdoors, we only need probably 1 or 2 opportunities during the regular season to get the race off that we need to get off. I'm sure she could debut her 100-meter hurdles at the Tom Jones or Florida Relays and be just fine in that. The 400 hurdles take more of I think takes more time and in race. But during that time of the year, I think that's when we should, be laying out the structure, the pattern, the race model for whatever her race is ultimately going to be. I think if we spend enough time on that, in the tail end of the fall and through indoor, I think outdoors, we could have that race together, at least the first 2/3 of it. And I think in the early part of the year, the meets that really, really don't matter, the meets that are more practice than anything, I think we could use those opportunities competition-wise to nail down the race that we ultimately need towards the end of the year.
So when you're talking about the base phase, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So when you're talking about the training model, when you talked about the base, how much acceleration development do you do in your initial phase of training with the combination hurdler?
Well, Sure. So I think a lot of what we do plays into acceleration development one way or the other. Now, typically when people ask that question, they're asking like literally at practice, are we working on an acceleration drill or are we working on steps or something like that? But to me, the plyometric stuff that we do in the early fall is part of acceleration development. The bounding that we do is part of acceleration development. The hills that we do are a part of acceleration development. So I think we're working on acceleration development multiple times a week, just in different ways. I would say, actual work blocks and, step patterns of hurdle approaches. I try to get that in at least once or two times a week, starting from October, through the
I'm talking
end.
about,
And
I'm talking about the very initial phase, like the August to October phase. When what you kind of defined that was working on general fitness stuff. So how much are you working on acceleration during that phase?
Probably once or twice a week, and mostly in the construct of the tail end of your warm-ups. I'm just trying to teach concepts during that time of the year and make sure you understand the mission, make sure you understand the plan that ultimately is going to get put in place. Whatever warm-up routine we're going through on a daily basis, it's easy enough to tag in at the end of it some literal acceleration work, be it from blocks, 3 points, 4 points, grass. It's all, and we always have that in there, because if you're going to be elite at the short hurdles, 0 through 1 is everything. And that takes longer, in my opinion, to get right than almost any other part of the race. So we're going to spend an exorbitant amount of time on it.
Okay. So now, once you during the indoor season with an athlete like this, and the fact that they've got to run, the 400 hurdles outdoors, how much work are you doing, like on the we'll call it the special endurance side of things, to make sure they're prepared if we're at the NCAA meeting 2 weeks later, we got to run a 400 hurdle race? Like, what things are you doing to help prepare them for that aspect of this ambitious double we're talking about?
Well, from a competition standpoint, they need to be running
No. From a training standpoint,
straight training standpoint.
Yeah.
Like I said, during that time of the year, there's no reason, unless we have some kind of facility issue or weather issue, there's no reason that we can't be working on that race model during indoor. There's just really no reason for it. So, special endurance should be, in there at least once or twice a week in some form or another. And I just don't really see any obstacles to why that would be. There's so many different ways that you can creatively get those reps in and get them done and play in that particular area of training. Now, obviously, it needs to be, directed towards there's no way, if you're running the 400 hurdles outdoor, that you should start working on that when the indoor season ends. That's a recipe for disaster.
Okay. Well, very well done, my friend. So now we're going to let the EP dive into his part of this. And trust me, he's very excited about this, guys. Okay, so, I think part of being a head coach is grooming your assistant coaches to be a head coach at some point. So what I've asked second best friend to do here is, we're going to let you become a head coach at any school in the Big 12, minus now, the new Big 12, minus Oklahoma.
I'm about to say the new Big 12.
Right, the new Big 12, minus Oklahoma and Texas. And you cannot take Texas Tech. So the job you have is to look at the landscape of the league and tell me how you would build a team to challenge the Red Raiders for the conference title on a yearly basis. Like, how are you going to build that team based on where you're going to choose to go?
We all know where he's going.
I just hope that you will support me in my endeavor to get this job, because I
plan on killing Texas Tech.
Killing. Cool.
Okay. All right.
We are
Okay.
all ears at this point in our lives.
First, I would like for each of you to simultaneously, on the count of 3, guess which school I picked. 1, 2, 3.
BYU.
I don't know what that is.
Who is that, Clyde?
It's the Sun Devils.
Oh, the Sun Devils. I say Arizona State as well.
That is awesome. You guys think so much of me. I absolutely did not. I went with what I think is the sleepiest of all sleeping giants in the entire country. I went with the University of Houston.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay.
Outside the
And-
box. I like it.
I like
And
it
I
too.
went with the University of Houston because I think it's a better version with a longer reach than ASU. You guys all know me and you know how I think, but the problem you have with ASU trying to beat Texas Tech is you can't stretch the money enough.
Okay.
But at Houston, you can. So for all the reasons that I would have picked ASU, I'm picking Houston, meaning it's relatively, especially compared to the rest of the schools in the conference.
I need you to remember, you're not just speaking to the 3 of us.
Yes.
So when you talk about stretching the money, I need you to explain what stretching the money means.
Okay, that's fair. I'm sorry about that. So at the end of the day, the NCAA gives you 18 and 12.6, and it is very, very, very difficult to win a conference meet if that's as far as your money goes. So you need to be able to, with institutional aid, add to that 18, and we'll call it the 30, right? You need to, with institutional aid, with overall cost of school, with NIL money, and honestly, with area talent pools that will help you stretch the money, meaning you can probably get a Houston kid now to be in a Power 5 situation for a little bit less money with the legitimate chance of winning a Power 5 conference and competing for a national championship.
So we're going to stretch the dollars. Now, how are you going to structure the team?
Okay. For me, the structure of the team is in no particular order, but definitely will include my sprint group is going to be pretty much relay based. I'm going to put money into 2 true 1-2 people per gender, and money, and maybe it's more on the women's side, I haven't gone that far, and money into 2 quote unquote true 2-4 people. Everybody else who sprints in my program is going to run the hurdles of some sort, either short hurdles with a sprint upside or short hurdle long hurdles with a 4x4 relay upside. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to put all of my money where all of Texas Tech's money is. So I'm going to battle them, and I'm going to put my money into beating them in the relays for sure. But my plan from the sprint side is to outpoint them in both hurdle events for sure. Where I'm going to probably go heavier than almost anybody has ever gone in the Big 12 is the field events. And almost no one-trick ponies. So if you see us have a javelin thrower, that javelin thrower is top 3 in the nation. And if you see us have a pole vaulter, that pole vaulter is number 1 in the nation, because I'm not doing that. But there will be a whole lot of long jump, triple jump, high jump, combined events, shot, disc, hammer. There'll be a whole lot of that. And to be completely honest with you, if I have a thrower, that thrower is either going to be free on financial aid or is going to be a foreigner who's going to score points at the national meet immediately. Because what I'm not doing is trying to reinvent the wheel on every single kid. There's going to be some kids in some parts of the program that are going to be pillars. So I need a good throws coach.
Let me interrupt you again. What do you mean by reinvent the wheel?
Well, I mean, I think we all love to coach. Every coach out there wants to, part of our ego is the ability to take kid X from this spot to this spot. But you can't do that with 100 kids. There's not enough time in the day nor enough coaches. So some of those kids have to be way closer to here. And you just got to make them better, but not invent them and then make them better. So I have, in my recruiting, I have a 5-point system. And rather than go all the way around the block, I'll just say this: it's going to be a whole lot of 4s and 5s, and maybe 1 or 2 3s on the whole team. And 3s are developmental kids that a year from now I would expect to be battling for conference points. You're not going to get very many of those on this team at all. And I don't want anybody to think I've forgotten about this. My distance group is probably going to be, at least initially, almost all financial aid and walk-on levels. They won't necessarily be walk-on talent, so it's going to require my distance coach to be a very good recruiter. Because I don't want to suck, but you're not going to get a lot of money either.
So
that's where the NIL piece helps a lot at Houston.
Right. So, but is there an NIL presence at Houston?
There is.
For track and field?
Yes.
There is.
Okay.
Now, the thing with the NIL track and the NIL basis with track and field is it's there, but it's got to be warranted.
Yeah.
But it's definitely there.
Okay.
And
you
there's
think
a tremendous
that's a model,
amount of
a sustainable model to consistently challenge the Red Raiders for the conference title every year?
I definitely do, because I think that model has a ridiculous level of sustainability at that school. Because you're always going to be able to get financial aid kids. You're always going to be able to get kids with NIL situations.
So when you say that, are you leaning on the popularity of the school itself, meaning the University of Houston? Like you're leaning on the popularity of the school?
It's probably a combination of the popularity and the place. Houston is desirable to a great number of people.
Okay. Well, can you explain?
It's the Texas version of Atlanta. There's a lot of minority cultural positives to the University of Houston and to the city of Houston.
Okay. Cool.
Like, I don't want to use too much vernacular, but the kids would say, Houston's pretty lit.
Okay. All right. Well, just in time.
What'd you say, Clyde?
I said, can we demand that he at least, in taking this job, stops pretending that Houston is Speed City? There's only one Speed City.
Oh wow!
Well, I've already told you that we will be rebranded as Field Event U.
There you go. I like
it. There's a better chance of us having 6 people at the national meet in the long and the triple jump than there is us having 6 people in the 100.
There you go.
Okay, Madam Chu, Madam Big League, how are you?
I'm well. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, my dear.
Good.
Welcome.
Thanks.
So you're just in time for
change your name to Hair Did.
I got my hair did. It needed it bad.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So you are. We have a poll voter who's struggling with her confidence with higher bars in competition. And so I'm going to ask you to explain to me how you help her overcome this issue from a mental and physical standpoint.
All right. So I'm a high believer in confidence. I think without confidence, it's just pure luck. And so mentally and physically, we find that middle ground. Bye, Governor. And so drilling, whether I prefer to do back extension rolls over the high bar to come down, doing things to put her in a position to where she knows what it feels like when you clear at any given height. And then so doing that repetition. So putting her in a position to know that clearance, call it whatever height it might be, call it 450. So we're going to warm up at 415, and then bar goes up at 430, 445, 460, so that 450 becomes just three numbers in sequence. And letting the experience take care of itself. So never finding the
Okay.
negative, but always pointing out the positive.
Right. So I've seen a lot of little tricks over the years. How much work do you think is required off of the springboard?
I don't like that apparatus at all. I'll be
Okay.
completely honest. I think it's a
So
false
give me
positive.
some pros and cons with that.
With the springboard specifically.
Yeah. Yes.
So the athlete, whether it's, so that's also used in the long jump as well. The athlete doesn't have to apply force to get force. And so when taken out of the equation, well, I feel dead. I'm not getting off the ground. Well, yeah, because you're not putting anything into the ground. There's an equal and opposite. And if there's nothing in, there's nothing out. When you have a springboard, there's always something out as long as you depress. So I don't prefer such a said apparatus. The other one that's kind of the quick confidence builder is some coaches like to tap as they're coming through on the takeoff.
We're going to rewind.
Just
we're
kidding.
going to go back to this springboard. Don't kid.
Okay.
It's okay. So we'll go back to this springboard because I've heard the people that talk about the springboard talk about the fact that it gives you the height required to feel the higher bar. So they're not concerned about what you're saying. They think they have that already, but they're using that apparatus to get the feeling of the height of the bar. What is your comment on that?
I can hear and understand what they're saying, but if they're not able to achieve that on their own, how are they ever going to feel tight? Right. So like, I'm not going to give it from the bottom up. I'm going to give it from the technique. So when we do our round offs, when we do our back extension rolls, when we do our bendy pulls, when we do our bupkas, I'm going to give variations of those things to enlist or to recruit that strength and that kinesthetic awareness so that that can be highlighted rather than luck and a prayer.
Okay. So then I've also seen a lot of some people use the bar, some people use the bungee, some people use the bungee and the bar. So what are your thoughts on that sequence of things?
I use the bungee 95% of the time. I think the bungee
what are the advantage of the bungees versus the bar in practice?
Advantage of the bungee is it's non-consequential. One, it doesn't take time for me to put it back up. So that's quote unquote waste of time unless you're a single vaulter and you need to buy the rest. But also there's no feedback besides the physical touch. So there isn't a landing. There's not a fear of landing on the back on your back on the bar. I also think that because it's in our minds and our bodies, we are programmed to keep ourselves safe. So to do those things in reverse is irrational. So if I can give you a moment of safety and confidence, I'm going to do that. So when do I use the bar? Championship season. Like we are bars only and we're only taking no more than 10 jumps. Every jump's at a bar.
So the other question I have is, so what is your expected ratio as to just pure approaches versus actual takeoff and landings? I guess you take off, you got to land. So actual takeoff. So what is your ratio? 5-to-1, 10-to-1, 6-to-1? What do you think?
So sorry, I don't know that I understand what you're asking. Meaning,
I mean, like I know,
like running through,
like you're running through whatever you guys call it, just approaches without taking off versus actually taking off.
Taking off. So my role is if you don't leave the ground 3 times, we're done. So it's just
what I'm asking you is, do you do things that are just choreographed for the approach, or does approach to you the actual plant and takeoff? Yeah.
No, yeah, we separate it. So we actually come off the runway and we'll either use a slide box or I'll take out a box or I'll use a towel. So it kind of
Okay.
depends on who I'm working with and what visual barrier they need. And that's how I gauge who does what. And then that is a completely separate session. Sometimes I let them finish with a couple jumps, but it's never the focus of the session.
Okay. That's what I was looking for.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So now, we're at that point in the staff meeting where everybody's tired of hearing me talk and answering my questions. So I'm gonna ask you guys to give me your thoughts on some things that are going on in the real world, like
Mm.
Michael Norman back to Quincy. The rumor is that Fred's going to Quincy. The big news this week was Marcel Jacobs to Raina Ryder. We've heard that Kayla White and Melissa Jefferson are going to Dennis Mitchell, right? A lot of big movement out there. So what are you guys' thoughts on some of that stuff? We'll start with Clyde of KOP, whatever that means.
King of Petty.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay.
So,
Got it.
and an appropriate question to ask the King of Petty. Listen, pick a year. If it's an Olympic year, shenanigans are always afoot. It's like clockwork. It's coming. How many of these moves ultimately prove to be shenanigans and how many of them prove to be righteous will have to play out, in races and who makes the teams. But they're all very intriguing for very different reasons, at least for me. We all, and when I say we all, I mean like 98% of the track community, 99% of the track community, all thought Fred Curley was crazy when he abandoned the 400 to transition to the 1. And ultimately, he got a gold medal and a silver medal out of it. So we all looked dumb. Leaving whatever his training situation has been, the training situations that produced those results, to move to LA and to train with Quincy, who we all respect highly as a coach, it's kind of a head scratcher because, let's be real, Quincy's not known as a 100-meter guy. Mm-hmm. But if anybody was going to pull it off, it's probably Fred. I don't see how Fred makes a move back to the 400 because he's getting paid what he's getting paid because he's supposed to be the king of the 100. I don't see economically how a move back to the 400 makes sense. But listen, Fred has earned the right to do whatever the hell he wants to do and have us just say, okay, Fred, we'll see you at championships. So I'm not going to doubt it twice. I'm going to sit back and cheer that it goes well. The irony is that Michael Norman has left Quincy Watts to train with John Smith for his transition to the 100. So they're all in LA now, but it's just a very odd and an interesting dynamic out on the West Coast. Speaking of USC connections, Carl Goodman is now working with Quincy Watts at USC with what I believe is the women's sprinters, and his star pupil is off to new endeavors. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. So, some people may look at that as a Nike move. Some people may look at it as just a professionalism move. Maybe Melissa doesn't vibe with LA and can't see herself living on the West Coast. There's all kind of reasons why these things happen. But, the hot female Nike camp right now is Dennis Mitchell. So on paper, that move makes a lot of sense. The one that caught me was Jacobs to Raina Ryder. Now there's some Puma connections in that, sure, but like Marcel Jacobs from a professional sprinting standpoint is like Italian. We all know he's born in America. We know that, but he's Italian born, Italian bred in this sport, and all of his success has come under the guise of the Italians. So I have to imagine there's some kind of, hurt feelings in that scenario somehow, some way. But the group that he's going to officially be working with, DeGrasse returning to Raina at the end of this year, Jacobs, Bramell, and Hakeem Sonny Brown, who's been running really well, seems like could be half of the Olympic championship final. So fireworks every day, I guess, but all very intriguing.
Yep, it can be very, very intriguing. What do you got second best?
Well, it's funny, that particular, I'll start where he finished. That particular move is interesting to me, but I will say, I think we would all agree that the one thing that Mr. Ryder has been very good at in his career is reclamation projects. He has done a very good job of putting people back together that were once somewhere. So in that regard, I could see how that could work, if that makes any sense. I think the head scratcher for me that we haven't mentioned is Marvin Bracey going to Dennis. And it's not even because I can't even necessarily say I don't think it will work. I just think it's kind of a head scratcher for where he could go to choose to go there. And obviously, I like all parties involved, so I'm nothing but hopeful that it will work. But genders of camps, whether they're intended to be so or not, usually become more male or more female dominated, and it's just an interesting move to me. But look, I'm kind of like the king of petty, like, because none of this involves any of my clowns or circus, I kind of just pop popcorn and watch it all. Some of it's interesting, some of it's entertaining, some of it's very, very head scratching. And the Fred move is very Fred-esque.
Well, I think that the thing that we always have to factor in, and this is something I've discussed with my group, is the Olympic year. And people are going to turn up the volume and turn it up loud. And so if, some of those moves we talked about were forced, other ones were done because people were disgruntled. But whatever the deal, like, it's going to be an epic year because it's an Olympic year. From the age groups to the professionals, you will see incredible track and field. And I am, for one, excited, and with all the moves we talked about, they could all go really well. There's none of those moves you look and go, well, wow, that's going to just be bad, right? They're interesting, but there's none of those you just go, oh, that's not going to work, right? So, but anyway,
I will say this. Sitting here thinking about it, since we're talking about it, I think of all of those moves discussed, I think the riskiest one is Fred. Because we just watched Fred fail to make the World Championship final. And let's be real, assuming health for all, Coleman, 982, 983. Noah is the reigning defending world champion. Like, it's like one spot. You could legitimately end up in a scenario where Fred doesn't make the 100-meter team for the Olympics. There ain't no buys to the Olympics. So I think that's the riskiest move of all. But again, if someone's going to pull it off, it's going to be Fred Curley.
Yeah. So we shall see. Well, as I wrap up my staff meeting here, we're going to kind of we're not going to do any heartbeat props or would you rathers, but Big League does have something she wants to share with us, and we're going to wrap it up with that.
Okay. So I was late. This is my tardy of attendance, so I apologize. Don't scold me. I'll stay for my detention. But I did want to let everyone know that I will be absent from the next few shows. Likely the next 4, but we'll see, because we all know that I can't sit still or obey instructions ever. Some of you know, some of you don't know. Over the summer, I was actually diagnosed with breast cancer. On Monday, I will undergo a double mastectomy to take care of business, because I am not going to let anything linger. So with that said, I appreciate all of the well wishes, the thoughts, the prayers, all the things that, whatever it is that you do and you care to send, you don't have to, and you can just leave it be. But I will say, for those who have, who will, and have not survived this, I will survive for them and for you all. So with that being said, I will be out of commish definitely for the next week because I will be on narcotics, and it is not advised to handle any electronic devices while I'm under the influence. So I will listen to that rule. But then thereafter, it's going to be a matter of me being able to stand upright, me being able to just function. So I'm going to finally put myself first and make sure that I heal without any unforeseen hiccups. And do my best job to be a patient and not a controller. That's going to be so hard. But with that said, all is well. Caught it very early. I did postpone surgery and treatment this summer to experience what I was able to experience at Worlds and at Thorpe Cup. And so I was blessed to have the doctor say that that was fine. And now we are taking care of business. So with that said, I will have my first official absence, and I really don't know how to feel about that, but I will be okay. So,
Chewy, we love you.
Thank you.
And we're glad that you are taking these steps. I think we would all enjoy Chewy on narcotics on the Zoom,
No.
but absolutely not allowed.
It's incriminating.
Not allowed.
Yeah,
yeah.
you get better. We'll hold down the fort while you're gone.
Yeah, for sure, and that's no doubt. Now I know it'll be just as entertaining. And yeah, so I just wanted to let that be known out loud, so there weren't any conversations that were unnecessary taking place. Go ahead and nip that in the bud real quick. I wasn't fired, so.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm
yeah.
pretty sure there's no way we couldn't fire the host. So.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, we could barely record without the host at the beginning.
Exactly. That was quite traumatic for us all. I will say that. Thank you, second best. But anyway, with all that being said, we will keep our dear friend Big League in prayer and anxiously await your return. And we hope everybody has a phenomenal week and continues to grow and prosper in the sport that we love. And we will see you guys all in 7 days.
Hasta.
When the lights come on, the road just get to running. When the lights come on, opponents smash the plumbing. Heard you like it warm, hot, knife the butter. Truth hit them hard, knock them off that rebuttal. Tsunami, tidal wave to your puddle. Tough love, punch you in the arms, little brothers. Athletics, LLC, there's no others. Track and field's pace and we'll peel to go further. Hey, Wally, Coyote, it's road runners. Feels like you know us, you've been with us the whole summer. If not for this quarantine, these four corners wouldn't be here, but we here, so start learning. You gotta earn your stripes, gotta get your scars. Show you how to fight, but show us who you are. You lack experience, but still you wanna talk. And who is actually talking to you? Circle's kinda small. Heads prevail when the backbone's strong. Gotta keep it coming, no, it won't last long. Pass it, failed, and sell the sad song. And if you don't check yourself, then that's wrong. Just trying to give you the real that you asked for. So why you keep cutting us off to ask more? We put it in slow-mo, but you fast forward. Athletics, LLC, the task force.